1,000 times slower than mine. You know. The fourth phrase is really just verse 20. Jesus spoke and taught openly because no one seized him because his hour had not yet come. Here's what Jesus is saying in this verse. Knowing God in an intimate and passionate relationship, walking in the Spirit transforms our lives. It transforms the way that we live so that we are living differently. Jesus could teach and preach in the open knowing they could not seize him because it was not the Father's will for it to happen yet. And when you walk in the Spirit, when you have an intimate and passionate relationship with God, you have a clear understanding of God's will, God's plan, and God's method. And that leads to greater confidence and a greater understanding for you to be able to boldly go where no one has gone before. Knowing leads to understanding God's will. God's will. God's will is not some vague, wibbly-wobbly, unknown, timey-wimey stuff. Matthew chapter 6, verse 10, in the Lord's Prayer, it talks about God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven. His will, His plan, His method, His timing. I know, the last one, I so struggle with that one. But I do not need testing in patience, Lord. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 3 lays it out clearly if you're ever wondering what God's will is. What is God's will for you? 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 3 says, for God's will is. It can't get much clearer than that, right? For God's will is your sanctification. Sanctification, that's a big Bible word for being like Jesus. So it's God's will for you and I to be like Jesus. Selflessly and sacrificially loving God, selflessly and sacrificially loving people. Growing in holiness, godliness, innocence, and purity, my friends. And then Romans 12, verse 2. Romans 12, verse 1 is about being a living sacrifice, an act of worship. But verse 12, verse 2 talks about when we do that, when our minds are transformed, then we prove what the will of God is. We give evidence to what the will of God is, and it has three descriptors. God's will, God's method, God's timing is good, acceptable, and perfect. Even His timing is perfect. I'm talking to myself. Yes, Lord. Good, acceptable, and perfect. Knowing God, having an intimate and passionate relationship with God, leads you to understand this stuff so that you understand God's will done here. You understand God's will for us to be holy and innocent, that God's will is good, acceptable, and perfect in our lives, in the good days and in the bad days. Knowing God in an intimate and passionate way leads to confidence. A believer in Jesus Christ who knows God, is walking by the Spirit, knows that I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. So if God asks me to have an awkward conversation with somebody, I know God's in the midst of it. The Holy Spirit will give me the words to say. It will not be awkward. It'll be worth the time. God can cause all things. We often get caught up on our own insecurities, our own shortcomings, our own weaknesses, past failures, and we think that makes us less. Not realizing that everything we actually do, our entire life, is not about us, but about God. And because it's about God, it's not about any of that baggage and garbage. But it's 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. God did not give us a spirit of timidity, quiet, shy weakness. But instead, He gave us a spirit of power, love, and self-control. You and I, my friends, we are walking in victory, and we have the Holy Spirit in us, working in a powerful way. So let's start acting in power, behaving in love, and living our lives in self-control. And let his light shine in and through us, my friends. When you know God and when you walk in the Spirit, fear decreases, faith increases. Fear diminishes, faith rises. Faith falls. Faith falls. Fear falls, faith increases. I knew I was going to mess that up. I messed it up every time I practiced this, but I only messed it up one time before you guys. That's the best record yet. All right. Look at Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10, and 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will also help you. I will also uphold you with my righteous right hand." What can stand against that? Nothing. Let's do it. And then 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7, which is a much shorter verse. "For we walk by faith, not by sight." God's got this, so we can do it. We can be the men and women of faith that we're supposed to be. And when we do that, our lives are transformed. Our lifestyle is transformed. And the world shakes because the followers of Jesus Christ are living lives that give him honor and glory. Do you know Jesus in an intimate and passionate relationship? Are you living a lifestyle, a faith lifestyle, with less fear and increased trust? The Holy Spirit will answer that question for you. These are things we need to talk about at lunch, on the drive home, sitting on the couch. Let's talk about this faith lifestyle. Less fear, increased trust, my friends.